Environmentalists in Kentucky must be very happy that their Supreme Court sided with the citizens that oppose a certain usage of eminent domain to grab their land for a pipeline. Now, can that ruling from February 10th that saved landowners in Kentucky be applied to New York State or anywhere else? Based on the information that we can gather, it can only be used to influence any judge within the U.S. and throughout the world. Just as New York state law does not bind the people residing in Kentucky to our laws, their laws are not enforceable on our residents in most cases. And those exceptional instances require one state to ask permission from the other state to send an individual back for a courtroom appearance. And states can stall for a very long time, if they so choose. Back in December of 2013, the Bluegrass Pipeline proposed a multi-state pipeline, which would have gone through 13 of Kentucky's counties, but was stopped by Kentuckians United to Restrain Eminent Domain, otherwise known as CURE. Among the group's reasonings was that the pipeline corporation was not a regulated utility and therefore could not claim or ask for the very real legal action of eminent domain. Although the corporation protested that they were entitled to use eminent domain because they were doing business for the public, the court at every level of the Kentucky legal system agreed with its citizens and not the Bluegrass Pipeline Corporation. Bluegrass lost at the first court level, then appealed their decision, only to lose its first appeal. Having lost twice, Bluegrass tried the Supreme Court of Kentucky, only to lose again because that court refused to even consider it. Thus, the landowners won the rights to hold on to their land against this method of land appropriation. But knowing the stubbornness of some of these pipeline companies, they'll try other ways to acquire those lands. But this time, this company is stopped in their tracks. However, Tennessee Gas Pipeline, which already has a pipeline built in the state, is trying to get permission to change its pipeline's authority so that it can transmit a mixture of natural gas liquids instead of what is currently allowed to transmit, only natural gas. We'll have to wait and see how this turns out, and we'll keep you posted. Jet planes are one of the very biggest contributors to atmospheric greenhouse gases, global warming, and climate change. The first large increase in the growth of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere coincides with the growth of commercial jet travel. We can only theorize as to why jet planes are so rarely mentioned by organizations that are fighting climate change. My theory is that the decision makers in the largest environmental groups also frequently fly in jet planes. Just my personal theory. Jack Saporito alerted me to some information on nextgennoise.org concerning the health effects of jet plane noise. This is new to me, and perhaps to you, but it's actually old environmental news that somehow never made it into national consciousness. The city of Phoenix, Arizona, has sued the Federal Aviation Agency, which is supposed to oversee the airline industry. Mayor Greg Stanton of Phoenix said in a press conference last year when he first threatened the lawsuit as what he called a last resort, that he believes the FAA, quote, has zero intent of solving serious noise issues, unquote, and that the FAA is, quote, not appropriately accountable and has undermined the trust we have in the FAA's local officials, unquote. All solutions the city of Phoenix offered to the FAA were rejected, and then the FAA accused the city of Phoenix of not offering alternatives. The mayor accused the FAA of using a procedure that kept community input out. And where have we heard that sort of thing before? FERC? NRC? Not long after that lawsuit was brought, Representative Grace Meng of Northeast Queens, New York City, introduced the Quiet Communities Act of 2015, Bill number HR 3384, to reestablish the Office of Noise Abatement and Control in the Environmental Protection Agency. The bill contains health information such as the fact that 10 million Americans are afflicted with some hearing loss that is at least partly attributable to damage from exposure to noise. Chronic exposure to noise has been linked to increased risk of cardiovascular disorders, learning defects in children, stress, diminished quality of life, and diminished worker productivity. EPA's Office of Noise Abatement and Control was first established in 1978, partly due to the Noise Control Act of 1972. The Reagan administration stopped funding it in 1982. If passed, Bill number 3384 will reestablish that office. So last Thursday, February 18th, there was an energy town hall that I organized for City Councilman Ben Kalos and State Senator Liz Krueger. On the panel was architect Chris Benedict, who is easily the greenest architect east of the Mississippi, if not the whole country, and one of the top energy experts in New York City, Andy Padian, who has personally made thousands of buildings in New York City use less energy. So it was kind of a dream panel as far as how to help people save money on their energy bills. And they each did a slideshow, which was very informative, and then took over half an hour of questions and answers from the audience. The questions were excellent. Some of the people in the audience clearly had heard either Chris and or Andy speak before, and some of them had not. The questions ran the gamut. And that was very nice, because that meant that people were comfortable whether they knew a lot or didn't know much at all. And you want everybody to be able to learn from Chris and Andy, and I think anybody who hears them for more than, say, 5 or 10 seconds is going to learn from them. They're amazing people. And Environment TV did record that town hall, and eventually you'll be able to see it on your computer.
And then one day the sirens blew, the county was aghast. It seems the aging nuke plant had an accident at last. The stockholders who fainted couldn't be reached for reviving, and they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. The highways turned to parking lots from Albany to Queens. The politicians learned just what evacuation means. They frantically assembled all their staff for some contriving, but they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. They knew the Hudson River was contaminated now. The radiation off the charts of what they could allow. They cursed the leaky nuke plants and its owners for their jiving, but they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving. The drivers of the buses went to pick up their own kids. School nurses giving KI were about to flip their lids. And somewhere in the distance there were terrorists high-fiving, but they couldn't get to Pleasantville because there was no driving.